Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, today we're going to talk about something that hopefully is going to be helpful for many of you, but also might be slightly controversial, and I definitely imagine that not everybody will maybe exactly want to let me finish this video, or as in will not want to finish watching this video, because it's often quite hard to admit your own shortcomings. And it's something that comes with maturity and something that is very beneficial for everybody to learn. But we're going to talk about players getting stuck going through the content, because vast majority of the players will encounter some sort of wall at some point playing Marvel Coins Champions. Can be earlier, can be later, can be frequently, can be extremely occasionally. Most commonly mentioned barriers or pieces of content people get stuck typically are 5.24 masochism quest, which is the first time a player really needs to adjust the way they play and kind of evolve a new skill, if you will. Then we have 6.22 Mr. Sinister, which is a roster roadblock, and you can be as good of a player as possible, but if you don't have appropriate counters, it's going to be very painful. Then we had 6.26 Champion, which is a different kind of barrier, which is partially relatively specific, but we do have sufficient amount of counters for him. But it's a kind of barrier where you can't buy your way through it. If you can do it, you can. If you can't, you can't. So it again mainly falls into skill category, especially the last 10%. So on and so forth. So the base idea here is, and about all of this video, is talking about types of roadblocks and reasons why you get stuck. And there are two main reasons for that. Obviously, number one is that you, as a player, unfortunately, are not capable enough. I really don't like using this phrase, but sometimes it's better to be blunt. You might not be good enough yet. There are obvious ways how to change it, by putting in practice, by gathering information, by acquiring knowledge, or all of the above, and you can improve. Because none of us were born playing this game well, right? It's a skill that we learned. Nonetheless, sometimes people are reluctant to admit that, and then most frequent thing is that it's Kabam's fault. It's Kabam's fault that you can't parry, it's Kabam's fault that you can't dex, or it's Kabam's fault that you can't get through a quest. And that is a very dangerous rabbit hole to go through, because Kabam by no means are perfect or angels, but not everything is their fault. Right. So that is the first big major subsection. The second major subsection of reasons why people are getting stuck are obviously the roster dependent requirements. And it's also very, very important to be able to distinguish between the two accurately. Because there are fights where if you do not have an appropriate counter, no matter the amount of skill you have, you will not get through. There are fights where you can get through with many different counters, or you might have the best options, but on top of that, you must play masterfully. So in order to help people deal with that, I kind of made a small list. Now, this list at large does pretty much nothing else, but for most part, it just shows what were the highest rated rosters capable at the time. So basically, when Act 4 was released, vast majority of top-end players were using 4-star 330 and 4-star 440 champions to get through it. That was what everybody used and what was the highest possible rank up for a champion. Don't think 5 stars were even a thing, and if they were, I doubt we could take them past rank 1 or 2. That was with Act 4. Now it had Act 5 release, and obviously it took a while. When Act 5.1 and 5.2 came out, believe you me, we only had maxed out 4 stars and maybe 1 to 2 rank 4 5 stars. Keep in mind that we didn't have vast majority of the quote-unquote best champions that are available now. There were no Dr. Dooms, there were no Nick Furies, there were no Agans, and yeah, so it was very different set of champions, significantly worse set of champions. So if anything, a lot of these champion requirements could potentially be even toned down these days, just because of how broken some of the champions that have been released since are. So in addition to fighting with very outdated champion pool, you can find that clearing Act 5 100% typically ended up being a job for a couple of rank 4 5 stars and a team of max 4 stars. First, rank 5 that was available in game was available only after you beat Act 5 100%. And again, obviously, as these longer acts come out over a significant amount of time, obviously that 5.1 statistically we would have had 0 or maybe 1 rank 4 5 star, and then 5.4 we would have had a handful, probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 8. But for vast majority of Act 5, it was pretty much a 4-star job, and that's it. So if you have champions who are ranked higher than that, and you're still getting stuck, chances are could be you that needs to work on yourself. But to carry this thing on, Act 6 is kind of like an exception of a rule here, because yes, we did have a handful of rank 5 5 stars when 6.1 came out. Obviously, by end of Act 6, the rosters had increased quite significantly, but overall, Act 6 is a shit show, and there is a reason why many people are leaving it or not doing it till they have very jacked up teams, and that's largely what I kind of recommend doing. Act 6 is going to be most frustrating thing that you probably do, and if you get stuck in Act 6, then chances are that, unlike in Act 5, Act 6 you're going to get stuck most frequently because of roster requirements and roster restrictions, because they are quite specific, and if you don't have the exact answers, then you're going to suffer and suffer a lot. Act 7 is the most recent one, obviously, and the champions that we primarily use currently are maxed out 5 stars, 6 star rank 2s, and 6 star rank 3s. That's not to say that 6 star rank 1s can't get some of the lanes and fights done. And then similarly, we have Realm of Legends. When that came out, people were beating Realm of Legends using 3-star champions, using 330 4-star champions, and using 440 4-star champions. I myself ended up using 330 4-star Wolverine and 330 4-star Doctor Strange in order to clear Realm of Legends. And Wolverine fight took just under an hour, I believe, using Doctor Strange only shooting off level 3s. But yeah, anyways, that's a different story. But if you have champions that are ranked higher than that, you are more than likely going to be able to explore, or you should be able to explore, Realm of Legends. When Labyrinth of Legends came out, that's perhaps even more interesting. We only had 4-star champions and 1 to 2 5-star rank 4s available to us. That situation obviously was a lot more dire because of the very limited 5-star pool, and it was basically kind of a situation of, if you don't have a rank 4 5-star Star-Lord, even an initial completion of Labyrinth of Legends used to cost like 3 to 4 Odin's worth of revives, because it was a complete nightmare compared to what it is now. However, in case of Labyrinth of Legends, also the rewards are extremely outdated by today's standards, and I personally stand to believe that Labyrinth of Legends is still well worth doing if you can do it extremely cheap. So in other words, if you have like maxed out Colossus, maxed out Aegon, maxed out Guillotine 2099, maxed out Domino, or something of a similar metal where you can basically push through Labyrinth with a couple of revives per path. But that was the champion level when Labyrinth was released. So again, Abyss is much more recent, and primarily people are using maxed out 5 stars, 6-star rank 2s, and 6-star rank 3s, even though it's significantly more complicated piece of content where the specific champions are important. And then variants. Variant 1 came out when most people had about 2 to 3, maybe 1, maybe 5 maxed out 5 stars. I don't think we even had 5. I think we probably had like 3 maxed out 5 stars at the top end of the game. And vast majority of the fights were done with rank 4 5 stars and occasionally with 4 stars. Now, variant 1 also was the hardest one. So ultimately, I do think that if you have a couple of rank 4s that fit the champion descriptions that are required for said variants, you're probably going to be able to do completion runs, but in order to be able to do exploration runs, you will want to have at least a couple or handful reliable rank 5 5 stars as you start going through them. But again, variant piece of content are fairly unique, and many of the lanes can be cheesed with 3 stars or 4 stars, and then some requirements there are definitely much more strict than that. And your ability to clear variants and the reasons why you might get stuck in particular variant really need to be taken case by case basis by most part, because it's going to be a mixture of both. There are some tricky fights in variants, but mainly it's about game knowledge and roster depth. Either way, let's go a couple of practical examples to nail down the main point that I was trying to make. So one of the most frequent quests that everybody who starts this game playing initially gets stuck is 5.24. And I have what I like to believe is relatively decent guide for this quest in particular. And if you haven't watched it, please do. It literally emphasizes the point on how to deal with masochism multiple ways, how you can work around it, what techniques you should use, and speaks about this quest in particular, because that is the big problem. If you are a new player, this right here, masochism plus role reversal and everything else that this quest encompasses, is the first real time when you can't parry, hit, attack, and expect to win, not adjusting to the nodes. This is the first real set of nodes in Act 5 that demands that you start to play better. Similar situations of players just evolving, and many people who have gotten past this point don't even think about it, but was when parry mastery, for instance, was introduced, ability to parry relatively reliably was rare. It was considered to be a very, very high skill. Whereas now it's kind of like a baseline common necessity to play this game. And similarly, at some point later on, intercepting was incredibly, extremely rare and impressive for a while. And as time goes by, more and more people got better at doing it because we played this game more. And it evolved into nice, it's cool, but it's nothing impressive anymore. Currently, the most impressive kind of thing that you can do with champions is to control spacing and know when your lights will and will not land, and what you can and can't heavy counter and stuff like that. And if you can masterfully play She-Hulk or Tigra or a few other champions, then that is considered skillful. And there will be a time when that will be normal, and there's going to be next skill. And this masochism quest kind of represents that. Because for people who have long learned how to deal with Bane or masochism, these things are very, very common. Because a lot of newer champions kind of incorporate these abilities, either by tenacity or clock watching with Silver Surfers and so forth. But it's new right here. So yes, I will leave a link to this masochism video and 5.2 video specifically here, because this is by far the biggest problem that young players are facing, and I have had a ton of questions about it. So this quest put aside, but it follows the same theme as everything in Act 5. Because believe you me, Act 5 virtually never requires you to have a very specific roster. Therefore, if you do get stuck in Act 5 for whatever reason, And if you do have, let's say, rank 3 5 stars, maxed out 4 stars, rank 4 5 stars, or a 6 star or 2, your account is more than strong enough. It's you who need to work on yourself. Now, Act 6, as I said, it's a completely different thing. And you can go case by case basis, but 9 times out of 10 in Act 6, it's probably roster requirement. Maybe with the exception of champion fight, where you do need to have relatively specific counters. You need to be able to deal with unstoppables, so on and so forth. But ultimately, the final 10% indexing that special attack is you. It's on you again, and you're gonna have to get better at that fight if you want to clear it. You're gonna have to learn how to do that fight better. Before I finish this video, just very quickly, I wanted to emphasize on something that's also extremely important. If you do get stuck, diagnosing whichever one is the reason, whether you have gotten stuck because of lack of skill, lack of roster, or lack of roster depth or level of roster, it's very important to understand which one is it. And instead of starting to throw revives and units at fights and trying to push through violently, stop. Back out, quit, gather some information, find some videos online, ask your friends, ask your teammates, ask in some chat rooms, ask on forums. I don't care, but don't try to brute force you through that quest. Because even if you end up spending 2,000 units to finish a single quest lane, and you will have achieved your objectives, so technically you will have won and you will have prevailed, ultimately you will have lost, because you will not have had fun, and you will not have enjoyed this process, because this is, believe it or not, a game, and it's meant to be fun. And mainly because you're not even gonna feel that you won. You're gonna feel that the game won and you got your ass whooped. It's gonna be much better to come back later and whoop the game's ass instead. Anyways, that is about it for today's video. I hope I didn't keep you too long, and I hope you guys find this useful. If you do, please forward this video to your teammates, to your friends in line rooms, to whoever you think this might be helpful, especially if they are newer and progressing player. All that being said, a sub to the channel would be absolutely magnificent, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.